Podcast City Network.
Hi everyone, I am your host, Marc the Shark Ritorto, and welcome to the Marc the Shark MMA Show, where every week we talk about the wonderful sport of MMA. Today we will review the most recent and upcoming events in MMA news. In each episode, the format may be changed, but you will always be entertained. There will be special interviews with special guests, along with special insights on the sport from our guest hosts. Also, check out our Facebook page for news and updates on future episodes. Also, we appreciate donations from our listeners to keep our podcast up and running. You can make a donation by clicking on the Click the Support button found at anchor.fm/Marc the Shark MMA Show. And that's Marc spelled with a C and not a K. We are also looking for guests who want to be on the show and sponsors who want to advertise their product and brand on the show. For more information, contact me on the Marc the Shark MMA Show Facebook page. Also, for a plug-in, if you're looking for a good action thriller suspense novel, check out a book called The Cabal, The Saga Begins. You can find it on both Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. It is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobooks format on Amazon.com. In paperback version only on BarnesandNoble.com, and the hardcover version is only available at www.retortofamilybooks.com. For a good book for your kid to read, check out I Am a Survivor or Invisible Girl, written by a little 11-year-old girl by the name of Christina Ritorto. She has her books in Kindle and audiobook format and paperback format on Amazon.com and paperback format on both Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And the hardcover version is only available at www.retortofamilybooks.com. Okay, everyone, keep on listening. We'll be back shortly after this break.
Good day, everybody. This is Dan Young with Total Wellness Radio, and you are tuned into the Marc the Shark MMA Show.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to www.audibletrial.com/MMA Show and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download the title for free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to www.audibletrial.com/MMA Show.
All right, guys, we're back on the show, and today we got a very special guest. The guy has been fighting since 1998 in various organizations, including the UFC. Today we have a guy that's fought Robbie Lawler, Din Thomas, Jeremey. I mean, he's fought them all. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome to the show Steve Berger. How you doing today?
Doing good, Marc. Good to talk to you, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor, sir. It's an honor. Now, I know you've been fighting since 1998, but how did you get into the MMA? I like to hear the story.
You know, I mean, I was kind of just a rough and tumble kid, and I guess you know, I was always into boxing. I had wrestled from 8th grade on up to senior year, and then you know, I saw the pay-per-view, you know, thing, UFC. And I guess it was I didn't even see the first one. I saw the second one on the pay-per-view. They were advertising it. And I remember looking at it and I thought, man, is this some kind of pro wrestling deal? Because I was looking at the clips and stuff on there and I was like, I wonder if this is real. And I remember just thinking, screw it, I'm gonna take a chance and I'm gonna click on it. And I clicked on it and man, that was it. I became hooked right after I watch that. You know, of course, I started trying to find out where I could learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and this was, you know, probably back in 93, 94, and I couldn't find anything. Nobody had heard of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu around here. So I did some research, and I found out that judo came from Jiu-Jitsu. So I went and I got into judo, and I did judo for about a year and a half, and I ended up breaking my thumb. I got thrown and landed on the thumb, and it snapped it in half. And it was like a deal where I had to have surgery and get pins in it and stuff. So I was out for a little bit. And when I ended up deciding, I'll flip through the phone book and find my old judo school, here I saw a big page that said, Rodrigo Vaghi, Hickson Gracie black belt, had moved into town and opened up a place. So I was like, oh, well, here we go. So I went up there, and I think I was 23 at the time, and that was like right towards the end of '96. Went up there, and I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and man, Rodrigo just pretzeled me up and let me know that I was not the man I thought I was.
Jiu-jitsu can be humbling.
Yes, absolutely. At that point in time, win, lose, or draw, I would have thought I could have given Mike Tyson a fight, and I went up there, and here Rodrigo tapped me just an obscene amount of times in 5 minutes, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was demoralizing.
Now, I know you said you did some boxing. So did you do like any like Golden Gloves boxing back in the day? Or
Yeah,
no?
yeah, I did. I got into boxing, and I fought in Golden Gloves 3 times. 2 of the times I ended up losing, and 1 time I won. The 1 time was in Kansas City, and I drove down there. Was pretty excited to do the thing, and I get down there, and there's one guy in my bracket, so he and I fought it out, and I won. So then I won the whole thing. So it wasn't as great of a story as I'd have liked to have been, but I still got the W. So
Now tell us. Now I don't know if the viewers really understand this because a lot of the guys that are watching it, they probably became fans after The Ultimate Fighter.
Sure.
But you were pretty much when you started your career. You started your career pretty much where people were you were still kind of like brawlers, right? And you have seen it go from where people were just, like maybe one guy was like a good striker, all the way up to past UFC 19, where people started to really blend everything together perfectly.
Absolutely. I would say I wasn't in on the very, very beginning, but I was definitely in on the infancy. I mean, it was one of those things, like if you look back to my time, there was still a lot of single style fighters, including myself, who were coming in and starting to try and mix other styles in, so that you could go and compete in MMA. So, if to clear it up a little more, I would train my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at one place, Rodrigo's place, and then I would drive and I would go to a boxing gym and I would work my boxing. And then, sometimes after jiu-jitsu, if I could get somebody who was a wrestler, we would do wrestling. So we did it all kind of separate starting out, and it wasn't until a few years down the line that we actually started trying to combine it all and work it all together. And I think that's because Miletich, he came on the scene, and that's what he was doing. And when people started figuring that out, including myself, that's when everybody's like, oh yeah, we need to start this grapple boxing and start training for what we're actually competing in.
Yeah, because I actually saw your fight or parts of your fight when you fought, what was his name, Chris Brennan.
Yeah.
You were already fighting for a few years there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you were wearing, I think at that time you were a purple belt, right? In jiu-jitsu? Because I saw the purple belt. I'm assuming that's from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I might have been a blue belt then. I might have been a blue belt when I fought Brennan. I might have been a purple. I don't even remember. But God, that was probably over 20 years ago, or right at 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
long time.
I mean, you've done it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, quite a bit. I've been around, and I was stubborn. I think most good pro fighters have about a 5-year career, and I went 16 years. But excuse me, not that that was the right thing to do. I probably stayed in a little too long.
Yeah. And what do you think is the biggest change that you've seen, like between even, let's say, from when you started your, ended your career to like now? I mean, you've had and seen some major changes in the sport, right? Like, how do you feel about it?
I mean, biggest thing is that I think that everybody's kind of, if you're gonna fight, to train. Don't like, we used to, like I touched on earlier, we used to train our jujitsu in a gi, and then we'd go ahead and we'd, do some wrestling, and then we'd go to another place and we'd do some boxing. Now everybody knows, hey, if you're gonna fight, you need to get in there and you need to train like you're gonna fight. You have to, obviously you take your precautions, you put the headgear and you put the bigger gloves on, but they're still open, and you put the shin pads on and all that, and you go hardcore that way. Starting out, I was just doing boxing in a ring, and then I would come and do jujitsu, and then I'd try and wrestle a little bit, and it just and then you try and combine it all together in the ring. Uh, you know, Now everybody's just training for the sport that they're doing.
Hmm. Now, how did you handle yourself financially back then? Because I mean, the money is there now. It's still not as big as other professional sports like baseball or football. But were you doing all this while you were working a full-time job?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a roofer, so I would go and I would roof all day, and then I'd go to the gym at night and train.
Wow, and that's not like an easy job either. Roofing construction is definitely not easy.
No, not at all. I mean, it was one of those things that you're gonna have to forgive me. I don't know what's going on. I swallowed a frog or something. I'm choking here while I'm trying to talk to you. Hang on, let me get a drink. All right, sorry. Yeah, no, roofing's definitely a tough job, but it's something that does toughen you up. It's funny, I was talking to a guy I was doing a podcast with a few weeks ago, and I was telling him, I mean, when I look back, I think it attributed a lot of my toughness uh, I can attribute a lot of my toughness to roofing, because
Mm,
when you're up there and the sun's beating down on you, and you're dead tired, you've been slinging shingles all day and pounding them in, you want to quit, but then you're like, well, the sooner I get this roof done, the sooner I go home. So you just keep muscling through, and
yeah, and then
so
doing the whole workout afterwards is not easy.
absolutely. There was many a times when I came home and jumped in that shower and then came out, and I was like, man, all I want to do is go to sleep. But it's like, well, I got the gym in the hour. Might as well slam some coffee and go.
Man, and what area did you grow up in?
I grew up in South County, born and raised in St.
And where?
Louis. St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. And then I see in your record you fought like Jeremy Horn. Like, did you ever like fight someone that you trained with in all these matches that you had?
No, I mean, what's funny is I trained with Jeremy later on, and there was guys that I had fought and trained with afterwards. But like I think Matt Hughes had come to Granite City, Illinois, and opened up the Hit Squad, and so Matt and Jeremy were real tight. So Jeremy was down there at the Hit Squad, so I would go up there and I'd roll with Matt and Jeremy, and of course everything was friendly. We just kind of at one time, we had fought, and then I went up there and we got a little work. It was kind of a cool setup that he had there.
So that training session was after you fought, correct?
Yeah, that was years after I had fought him.
And how was it working out with Matt Hughes?
Man, the guy's strong as hell. He was a monster. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago that I went up there. He was definitely a better jiu-jitsu player than I had expected. Because I thought he was basically just a wrestler. And when I went up there and rolled with him, we had a real solid match. Neither one of us tapped each other, but it was a solid match, and he was as strong as the Hulk.
Now, a lot of the training, I guess, was no-gi, correct?
Yes.
Now, out of all the fights you had, like, who was your toughest opponent?
Oh man, that'd be a hard one to answer. I fought so many tough guys and so many big name guys back in the day, but there was just so many that stick out. From Shoney Carter to Aaron Riley to Robbie Lawler to Jake Shields, Jeremey Horn, of course. Just so many tough. Picking the toughest. That would just be too hard. Uh,
And when you fought Robbie Lawler, that was in the UFC, I believe, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I got the call, to fight this kid named Robbie Lawler, and it was my dad who actually took the call, and he just calls me up. I was sitting on the roof. I had really kind of thought my time in the UFC was done at that point because I had been there and lost, and then I went back and I got a no contest, and then I was like, oh man, I just screwed it up. So I was like, well, I'll just take a break and go back to roofing. And next thing I know, time had went by, and I'm sitting on the roof, and my dad calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, guess what? Got you a fight in the UFC." I was like, "Really? When?" He's like, "In 2 weeks." It's like, "Oh wow." And I was like, "Dad, I haven't been training. I haven't." He said, "Doesn't matter. This is a big show. You don't say no." I was like, "All right, you're right." And next thing I know, I was 205 pounds at the time. I just started concentrating on cutting weight and getting myself down so I can make that 170. And was on the plane the following week, and I fought Robbie. And first round went well, but second round he caught me, and that was that.
Now, how many weeks preparation did you have for that fight?
Man, I didn't have much at all. I'd say probably it was we're going back to, I think it was 2003, but I'd say I probably had about a week and a half. Because
Oh, so you cut all that weight in a week and a half?
yeah, I cut a ton of weight, because they get you out there about a week before the fight, and I think I got the call from my dad about 2.5 weeks before the fight. So it was just like, man, it's just time to go. I just jumped on the treadmill and started running and started starving myself, trying to cut the weight and make it. And
Yeah.
like I said, first round I was feeling good, but I was gassing real quick, and second round I just came out sloppy, and Robbie is not the type of guy to come out sloppy. Had my hand down, and he came over the top with that right hook and followed it up with a nice little combination. And when he got on top of me, that was it.
Wow. Now, was he the strongest puncher you faced?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he probably was the strongest, but I fought a guy by the name of Waylon Lowe. I only got KO'd 2 times, one by Robbie Lawler and another by Waylon. And Waylon was later on in my career, but boy, he knocked me out, and he put me to sleep. knocked me out. I was I was seeing Tweety Bird with Robbie, but Waylon, I think I was out for a couple minutes. It wasn't one of my better fights. It was towards the end of my career, and we were throwing some punches, and the next thing I know, I was just waking up, and they're like, "You all right? Hey, you know who you are?"
Wow. Now, out of all your wins, because you got like 20 wins on your record here, probably more. I'm just going off the top of my head.
Sure.
But which one meant the most to you?
Boy, that's another tough one. There's quite a few. I mean, you love every single win, but one of the best was when I was down in Costa Rica. I fought a guy by the name of Piotr Jakuzinski, and I mean the whole setup was just so cool. They Calvin Ayre, who was like I think rated the 37th richest man in the world at the time, get set up that Bodog fight, and he had Bodog gambling going, and Bodog basically was a deal where he would set servers up in different countries and allow you to make bets and stuff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I've seen a few Bodog events. I remember that. Just like I remember Hook and Shoot. I know you fought on that. I'm like me and you are pretty much close in age. So I mean, I've been like following MMA for a very long time. But yeah, I remember Bodog, but I didn't know you can bet on that.
Yeah, he had Bodog fight, because I guess, it was just basically the Bodog gambling. The gambling was his number one thing, but he opened up Bodog fight and Bodog music to kind of, maybe filter more people into the gambling. And he would set his servers up in Canada and Russia, different countries and stuff, so he wouldn't be paying taxes. All these U.S. people would go ahead and they would place their bets and stuff, and then whenever he collected all that money, I guess Uncle Sam wasn't getting the taxes. Excuse me, but so that's why he got shut down.
Oh, I was wondering what happened to that. And then who was the guy that ran Hook and Shoot? I'm trying to remember that guy's name.
Jeff Osborne.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I used to. This was before Google. I used to run like a martial arts website.
Yeah.
And I used to buy my Hook and Shoot tapes from him.
Yeah.
And I would sell them on the website.
Yeah, Jeff was definitely a student of the game. He had every aspect covered from it.
Yeah.
Tapes, the fight.
Yeah, because I even remember selling his tapes at like here in Jersey. They had in South Plainsfield High School. They used to have like shoot fighting tournaments.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I would sell his tapes there. Crazy.
Yep.
Now, got another question for you. Now, what was the worst injury you ever got from a fight?
Man, I ended up right after I did that Bodog thing in Costa Rica. I was telling you, I was training real hard. Things were going pretty good for me at that time. I ended up signing a really big contract with Bodog, and I was like, all right, I finally made it. That's where I want to be. And I ended up somewhere in between that Costa Rica fight and my next fight. I ended up getting 2 herniated discs and 3 bulging discs in my spine. Man, that was painful.
Oh man.
That was by far the worst injury I've ever had, and I still deal with it to this day. I went ahead and I fought. I fought for a while. I just thought maybe this is what they mean by getting older, because I was having all this pain in my neck, and I would go up to the gym, and we had a sauna, and I would start getting there like an hour early, and I'd get in the sauna and stuff and try and warm it all up, because I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was around 34, 35 at the time. and I just couldn't figure out what was going on in my neck. And I'm taking, all this time in the sauna, and then I would go out and I'd wrestle. And after that first match, it was kind of like my adrenaline took over, and I'd just keep pushing through. And I got real lucky because I remember when I finally, when the pain just, because it just never goes away. It's like somebody's sticking an ice pick in the back of your neck and just wiggling it. And when it got so bad that, I mean, I couldn't even wrestle. I couldn't do anything because I just had no power in the left side, my left arm or my left chest. I finally went to the doctor, and he's like, Jesus, how long you been dealing with this? I was like, for months. He's like, yeah, this is insane. He said, you'll never wrestle again. And I was like, well, if that's the case, I'll find out the hard way because I've sunk everything I have into grappling. I opened up my own grappling gym at the time, and I was still trying to fight. I still had in my head I was going to make it back to the UFC, and so he was telling me you need to get surgery, you need to get this fixed, and I was like, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to do surgery. And he basically said, well, look, you can go to this physical therapy, and maybe that'll get you better. Well, I went to that for weeks, and nothing was happening. You do so many of these little goofy exercises they tell you and stuff, but I just was still in constant pain. And my one of my students at the time kept telling me, you need to see this chiropractor that I go to. Well, I had heard from excuse me again, I had heard from these MDs that chiropractors are witch doctors, don't go to them, they'll twist your neck up to make things worse. So I just kept telling him, no, I'm going to stay away from that. I'm just going to stick with this physical therapy. Well, after weeks of going and not getting any better, I finally was like, hey, give me the guy's name and give me his number. I'll go see him. So I went up. I went up, and the guy worked on me. And after the first time that he worked on me, man, I felt a little better. I was still in pain, but it was just like, he did all his stuff and snapped and popped my neck. And I was like, wow, that's the best I've felt in a while. I'm still hurting, but, I feel a lot better. And he's like, yeah, what it does is I guess it releases like nitrogen or whatever when it cracks the spine, and it causes the disc to slip back into place a little each time in between the vertebrae. So I kept going to him. I went to him like 3 days a week. He had told me, he looked at my MRIs and he said, I think I can get you back on the mat in 10 weeks. And I kept going to him. And 10 weeks later, I was back wrestling on the mat, So I'm a big fan and a big believer in chiropractors nowadays.
Yeah, I really don't think therapy really helps that much. If you're an old person, it never worked out, maybe, but not for athletes. I mean, depends on the injury, like if you tore your knee up, maybe.
Yeah, well, that was one of those things. I was so frustrated at the time because I was like, holy crap, I'm listening to everything these doctors are telling me. It's not helping. They kept wanting to give me these pills, and you just feel like a zombie taking those. So I finally was, oh man, I'd just rather deal with the pain than be in pain and feel like I'm sleepwalking.
Yeah. Now, in your career, and out of all, and your losses, which was the most controversial decision loss you ever had? Like you fought, you thought you won, and then you lost based on a decision. Was there any particular fight that you think back,
And
was controversial?
I had a few of them. One thing you got to realize, I mean, there was plenty of definitely a lot of my losses that I deserved, but I definitely had a few that I feel like because I was a road warrior, I was in somebody else's hometown with somebody else's home crowd. I got the loss. The other guy got the nod. Anytime it was close fight. But, you know, what are you going to do? That's kind of something that you knew going in. And like my dad told me a long time ago, he said, look, if you can't finish the guy, then don't complain about the decision afterwards. You know, it took me a long time to basically come to terms with that, but I have. You know, I didn't finish the guy, so you know, whatever decision the judges made is the decision they made. No amount of or saying, well, what about this, and this going to change it, you know? Because believe me, I tried in the past to cry and say different stuff, and it didn't work.
Yeah. Now, nowadays, you see a lot of these professional MMA fighters getting caught with performance enhancement drugs, you know, testosterone replacement therapy and all that. Has
Sure.
there been any opponents that you fought that you felt like, oh man, this guy's definitely on something?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the list of the fighters that I fought, I know for a fact that they were on crap, you know. And that's one thing I can say. Even though I'm a 500 fighter, you know, I can say I fought every fight clean, you know. So I never did do it, and you know, maybe that was a mistake. You know, maybe I should have, but you know, it's one of those things that at least I can say, hey, I fought every fight clean, and you know, quite a few of those guys were juiced up and they beat me, but there were some of those guys that I beat that were juiced up too, you know. So it is what it is.
So what are you doing nowadays? You have your own gym now, I believe?
No, I had my own gym for about 12 years, but I shut it down about 3 years ago. It just got to the point, you know, I never lost money on it, but I have, you know, I have a son and I have a daughter, and my son was about 10 at the time. My daughter was about 6, and I was working a full-time job, and then I was driving up to the gym, waiting around until the gym got going, and then I would train, and then by the time I shut the gym down and mop the mats and do all that crap, come home, it'd be about 9:15, and you know, the kids were either in bed or going to bed, and it just got to the point where I was like, man, you know, why am I doing this? I'm not fighting anymore, and I'm not making enough money to quit my day job with it, so you know, I'm just hang it up. So I did.
Yeah,
But
it's not easy, right? Because you're missing out on the special moments with your kids.
right, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you still train at all, like just to keep for
Yeah,
exercise?
dude, that'll. I don't know if you know, unless something physically happens to me, I don't know if I'll ever stop. You know, I mean, I probably took the longest break that I ever took after I shut my gym down. I was probably out for a good year and just did nothing except for concentrate on eating. And you know, I started packing on the pounds. I was like, geez, I need to get back after it. So I was getting a lot of calls. A lot of people would ask me, you know, hey, will you come teach some no-gi jiu-jitsu and stuff? So I went ahead and I you know, told a couple of the guys, sure, I'll take you up on your offer. So I coached at a couple gyms, and then when uh, things didn't work out one way or the other, you know, nothing bad, but one guy just he went out of business. The other guy, he was about 45 minutes away from me, so that just got really annoying, you know, having to drive there after work and then drive all the way back. So I had a gym by my house, and I ended up going down there, and you know, that guy had basically offered me a deal to coach there. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. These are the nights I can do it. So I've been down there. It's been nice. I've been able to stay in shape and keep wrestling around on the mats, and, you know, share some of the knowledge that I've learned over the past 23 years.
Oh, that's good. At least you're keeping active. I bet when you had that year off, though, you started feeling like some body parts that were aching you were not aching anymore, right?
But, you know, Absolutely. I definitely feel it a lot more, even when I'm, it used to be I'd go and I'd work all day, then I'd go to the gym, I'd train all night, then I'd come home, I'd get 4 or 5 hours sleep, pop up to the exact same schedule. And it was like, once I got up and shook off that grogginess, I was fine. I was ready to run through a brick wall and was fine. Well, right around 38, 39, it started to hit me. Now I'm 46, and man,
Mm.
it's like going on roll with these young guys, and we have good roles and stuff. And then it's like I wake up the next morning, I feel like the Tin Man. I'm like, oh,
Man, I feel you, dude. Yeah, I actually stopped training. I got injured in October. I had my thumb back, went back, and then I had problems with my foot. I'm actually, I tried stem cell therapy, which kind of brought the pain down, but I've kind of been out since January. Like I tried coming back. I took 8 weeks off. I'm back in January, and I just physically couldn't do it. But I'm noticing now, though, like I've gained the weight, but my body's getting stronger. I can actually do push-ups, which I haven't been able to do because my wrists were always messed up from jiu-jitsu. But I'm hoping to get back into it. Like
absolutely.
by September, I miss it.
Yeah,
Drives me nuts.
without a doubt. Drive me nuts whenever you want to do it, but the body doesn't want to let you.
Yeah,
You got to listen to it, and then whenever it's ready, you get back in
yeah. So that's good. So now, so you're coaching a little bit at this one particular school. Is there any particular fighters there that you're trying to like coach, mentor?
there. Yeah, I got a bunch of young up and comers that are, you know, training with me, and they have dreams to make it big. Nobody from there yet has made it on a huge show, but
Mm-hmm.
they've all got it in their sights, and they're all young guys.
Mm. Do any of them have any like particular fights coming up, like even in like a local small and local circuit, or?
On local stuff, they've got a few here and there. I've got a guy fighting tonight. He's
Mm.
been with me for a while. I think this will be his third pro fight, Justin Langford, but he's fighting at a show called Nemesis tonight, which is just it's a little small show here.
Mm.
But as far as uh, anything to any guys to talk about that are slated for the UFC or slated for Bellator out of my gym, not just yet. But we do. St. Louis, the Midwest, has a ton of great fighters, and there's quite a few that are headed that way or are knocking on that door right now.
Now, if you had to do it all over again, would you done what you did now, or would you have changed it in terms of your MMA career?
I would have changed it, definitely. I think the biggest thing, like I had mentioned earlier, is I had a 16-year career where I took a little bit of downtime here and there, but I was fighting every year for 16 years, and I think I got burned out probably right around the time that made it to the UFC and then lost. I lost the decision, and it was kind of like I got burned out, and what I wish I would have done looking back is I wish whenever I got those other phone calls, I'd have just been like, no, I'm not going to take the fight. I just need some time off. I wish I would have cleared my head. I wish I would have maybe pushed it aside, given a little rest, and let that fire and that hunger build back up. Because even though I had it, it wasn't as strong as it was in the beginning. If that makes sense. After
Mm-hmm.
I made it and then lost, and so there was plenty of times when I'd get calls month and a half away or whatever to fight so and so, and I'd be like, oh hell yeah, I could do it, and then I'd start training, and then I'd fall off because of work and other stuff that was going on, and then next thing I know, oh shit, it's fight time, and I'm not nearly in shape that I should be,
Yeah.
But,
A lot
so,
different now. These guys, they do it all full time,
right.
The opportunities that, your generation in terms of MMA, they didn't have the opportunity to do,
No, it was always if you're a pro boxer, then you could just box for a living. But back when I was coming up, if you were an MMA guy, well, you had to have another job.
Yeah. Now, if people wanted to get in contact with you, what's like the best way to get in contact with you?
Right now, you probably just hit me up on Facebook, and like I said, I don't have my own gym. I'm training down at Han Extreme Fitness is where I'm coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who wants to come up and wrestle with me or check out the program, they can look that up. And I'm there on Tuesday and Thursday nights from 5 to 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm. All right. You guys heard that. If you guys are in that local area and you want to train with a guy that's done it and been there and done it all, that's where you go. Steve, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you on the show.
Hey, thank you, man.
And I mean, I was really excited to have you on the show. I'm telling you from the truth, man. It was a real honor having you on the show.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thanks. Blowing my ego up here.
Yep.
Sorry I had this summer cold or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Not all right anyway.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll be back after this break.
All right, guys, we're back to the show. This is Marc. And to all the listeners out there, we'd appreciate it if you make a small contribution to keep the podcast going. All you have to do is go to anchor.fm Marc the Shark MMA Show and click on the support this podcast button. And it's Marc with a C and not a K. Again, it's anchor.fm /Marc the Shark MMA Show.
It's Angelica from A Little Bit of Everything with Me podcast, and you're listening to Marc the Shark MMA Show. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate to his podcast for more amazing episodes.
All right, guys, we're back. And now is the time for you guys to learn how to make money. Now, you can easily make money by listening to this podcast by downloading an app called Podcoin. Either your Android phone or your tablet or your iPhone or your tablet. And it's fairly simple. For each podcast that you listen to, you earn points, and then you can redeem those points for either Amazon or Starbucks, or you can even donate it to charity. Now, by listening to my podcast and using this special promo code called MMA Show, that's the promo code MMA Show, you will get 300 Podcoins just for signing up and using my code. Again, it's MMA Show, and the app is called Podcoin. You can get it from, if you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store. If you have an Apple device, you go to the Apple Store. All right, guys, we'll be back.
All right, guys, we're back on the show. I'm here with Zane. We're here to talk about this weekend's UFC card, UFC 240, between Holloway and Edgar. How you doing today, Zane?
I'm good. I can't believe it. UFC 240. I remember UFC 1.
And now we're showing our age. Yeah.
Getting up there, but definitely diehard fans.
Yeah.
I hope everybody's excited for the next UFC. Holloway and Edgar headlining.
Yep.
That's going to be a pretty interesting fight. I kind of feel that even though Edgar might not be number one, I think that there are maybe possibly one or two guys that maybe are a little bit better. I know that Brian Ortega, he beat Edgar.
Yep.
And, not many people beat him definitively. But I just think that it might be a little bit too early for Brian Ortega to get his rematch against Holloway. It was a grueling, devastating, beating that he took against Holloway. But I still think that Edgar brings a lot to the table, and that it'll be a fun and interesting fight.
Yeah, I just find it interesting how Edgar keeps getting these title shots. But I guess this is the type of relationship he has with Dana White. I mean, I know he's won. He is winning a lot, but he does also have a lot of losses too. But so what are your thoughts on the fight?
I think it's one of the factors. I think that you're absolutely right that he tends to be just a nice guy, hardworking, and always puts on a good show. And Dana likes that. Dana likes the fans to, react to a fight, get excited, and be happy either way. So he definitely has that with Dana, and he's not a complainer. He's either in the hospital or he's fighting. So, that's great. But I think that having a good relationship with Dana, number one, is key. Number two, always bringing in, a lot of fans. Number three, just putting on just a super exciting fight. Someone who's not just going to point fight or, only counter or just go to the ground. I mean, Edgar is just a great fighter everywhere. He might not be perfect everywhere, but I think he is truly great everywhere. The one thing that I remember talking with another one of your, panelists is Steve. I remember talking, we had a conversation about how even though Edgar is a great fighter, he still tends to be on the smaller side, where at 155, he was definitely too small. It was very, very hard for him to be competitive there. Just a huge size difference. At 145, he's still just a little bit small. But, he's got the speed, he's got, definitely strength and ability. And even for a larger opponent like Holloway or Ortega, he's still very competitive.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how he deals with Max Holloway's reach, because Max is pretty tall.
Well, I think it's going to be similar to Ortega. I think Ortega also had a decent reach. I just think that Holloway has kind of like Nate Diaz, where he has a great reach and he uses it well. Nate Diaz is an excellent boxer, and I think that Holly is a great boxer, and they're just very proficient on fighting from the outside, using their reach well, which is great footwork. Great footwork, always being, ready to throw any combination. Great balance, just being able to move and always be in the same position no matter where they move. I think that there's a decent amount of fighters who... You see a lot more kickers and punchers becoming more and more proficient on the ground, and that's why I think great ground fighters are having a lot more difficulty. Like Damian Maia, who used to be, oh my gosh, so amazing. But there's a lot of stand-up fighters that are more and more becoming much better on the ground. And once a great ground fighter gets into the ground, it's almost equalized. So I love the sport. I love how it's progressing. I kind of wish that there weren't so many rules. Mark, I know you and I, we talked extensively about reasons why they have rules, and it would be great to go back to almost no rules like in UFC 1. But, if you want to make money, and if you want to have the fighters stick around for a while, and, there's kind of give and take. So, I don't know if you have after this long period of UFC history, if you're leaning more towards you like the rules or you would like to pull back a little bit and let more happen. I don't know what your opinion is. I remember talking to you about it, but
Yeah.
maybe you might have changed.
As far as having rules in general, I don't know. I kind of like the old way, but I can kind of see in some ways how it's beneficial. Like for the fighters, they have a longer longevity, I guess. But
what about having the rules now, but just no rounds, just being able to go? Remember how it used to be where they would
yeah, I don't know how that would play out now. I think, see, when I think if there's no time limit, the fighters may pace themselves a little bit more, right? And then the fight might get, I don't want to say long and boring, but it might get too long and boring. Whereas, and that would take away from what the audience expects to see. They want to see the action. So if there's a time limit, I think the fighters are more anxious to get the fight over with because they know there's a certain time limit, so they'll move faster. And the fight will be at a faster pace, and I think that's what the audience likes and expects. It's kind of like when you go to watch a jiu-jitsu tournament, and you go to watch. I mean, I love submission-only tournaments, but if there's no time limit on it, it kind of gets long, drawn out, and boring. Whereas if there is a time limit on it, it's a faster pace. So I think there's pros and cons to it. I guess from a spectator point of view, I like things fast-paced. I just think it would be drawn out if there was no time limit. But with regards to the fight, who do you think is going to win this one? Holloway or Edgar? I kind of lean towards Holloway on this one.
I think the safe bet is Holloway, but I think that Edgar is realizing that. See, now I didn't bring this up before too. That I think that Dana and Edgar, yes, they do have a great relationship. I think that since Edgar is proving over and over again, hey, I'm giving a great show. Hey, I'm one of the top guys. Maybe not one or two, but definitely, in the top.
Yeah, I think he's ranked number 3 or 4 now or something.
Yeah, but I think Dana wants to throw him a bone and give him, that possibility of getting the title again. He's getting up there in age. He's only got maybe 1 or 2 more title fights, maybe after this, and then he really should be hanging it up, if he wants to stay healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Dana is trying to give him a shot. Everybody at the top 5, anybody in the top 5, they got a shot. Below that, they got some improvements to do. So I think that there's certain guys that might be at the top, but maybe it's not a great matchup. Maybe it wouldn't be a great fight. Maybe they're injured. Maybe they just got off of a big fight. So I think a lot of things that go into the match weekend. I think that Dana doesn't exactly have the easiest job that everyone thinks he has, where it's just fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's dealing with fighters that have issues, personal issues, or he's got to worry about which country we're going to be in and who's healthy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, and just trying to give some new blood, some opportunities, and make things exciting. Sometimes these younger fighters are just able to weather the storm a lot better than some of the fighters that have a lot of scar tissue or just have knee problems. So maybe they can get battered, and then after round 2, someone's got a broken foot or a broken hand from beating somebody up, and then all of a sudden the better fighter loses just because he's getting hurt trying to beat up the other guy. So, and we've seen that before. So it's such an interesting sport. Like street fighting, you can get, somebody who's a great fighter and they can hit you 10 times, and then the other tougher guy who could just weather it, boom, 1 shot. And
Yeah.
Does it mean that the other guy is a better fighter? No. It just means that he was able to take more damage. So many things can happen.
Yeah. Well, one guy I think that's kind of like climbing through the ladder lately is what's his name? Josh Emmett. He's been like knocking out people. He just cracked the top 10. He's like ranked number 8. So it'd be interesting to see if I think if he gets 1 or 2 more fights, he might be up for title contention because he's won his last.
If he's an exciting fighter.
Yeah, he wins, but he's been knocking people out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's exciting, making people stand up. It's fast paced and it's got up and down.
Yeah.
And,
He knocked out Jeremy Stevens, and Michael Johnson. And his last fight, he won too. So he's on a tear. But
now Stevens, I've seen him at the top 5.
yeah,
And I've seen him, then he gets knocked down, and then he's got to climb his way back up. And Stevens is tough as nails. But he's had a lot of fights, so it's possible. I mean, I'm sure you know this, and I definitely know that you know this, that you get knocked out once. It might have been hard to knock you out first time. A little bit easier the second time. This is a scientific fact. After the second or third time you get knocked out, you start becoming Glass Joe. So, it's just easier and easier. So it's not just these older guys or these guys who've been around longer that their muscles or their ligaments or their knees or they're getting. It's just that their jaw and their head can't take it like they used to. It's easier to get knocked out the more you get knocked out. It's just a proven fact.
yeah.
So,
Now, what is your take on the co-main event, which is Cyborg versus Felicia Spencer, who was the Invicta featherweight champ?
I tell you, anybody who fights with that type of knockout power, where it's a Cyborg or the champion, those two women are without a doubt the hardest hitters in either division, 135 or 145. Holly Holm even has a pretty good knockout punch, but you go up a level when it comes to Cyborg and the champion, excuse me.
Yeah,
Nunes. So, Nunes and Cyborg, you have to be able to work inside the pocket quick and then get out. That's my feeling. Even when you take them to the ground, both Nunes and Cyborg, they're proven to be great on the ground. And, they usually want to just pop up and then just start raining down punches. I mean, you have to be not just a jiu-jitsu champ. You have to be an MMA jiu-jitsu champ in order to just hold them tight and work quick. Because if you're just going to lay on your back, like in a jiu-jitsu tournament, that is not a street fight. And you're going to wind up getting hurt. And I think that this girl is great. She's proven herself. Invicta is great and everything, but it's definitely a step up to get to the UFC and then a step up after that when you fight Cyborg.
yeah. And this is only her second fight in the UFC. So I got to give her credit for it.
She usually wins with a very, very good choke. She just tends to be very good to get to that position. But in my opinion, she is not soft, meaning just her figure. She doesn't look ripped and ready to go, and maybe as fast or as good in the pocket. And I don't think that she's going to be able to enter as fast as she wants to. I just think that Cyborg might be too much for her. But I would love to see a submission. I would love to see a great fighter be able to take such a strong everywhere fighter, like with knockout power, devastating knockout power, be able to take someone, like to show this is what jiu-jitsu was made for. Be able to take someone who's such a strong knockout artist and good on the ground, and they still were able to enter, take down, stay tight, and submit. That would just prove to everyone that great jiu-jitsu can work. A lot of people, I think, are, they kind of come and go, oh, excuse me, it's my phone.
Yeah, it's okay.
So I think it kind of comes and goes in waves. Where people are, yay, jiu-jitsu, ground fighting, and then they kind of get away from it where they don't believe in it because they see people get knocked out or lose. And then you see some great ground fighters who are great cross-trained, and you start winning. So, like I said, the evolution of MMA, it just is, I think it's fantastic. I'm a true fan.
So for that one, I take it you would have Chris Cyborg winning that one then, right?
I think that she's going to be a little bit too much for, I'm sorry, I forgot her name for a second.
For Spencer? Jessica Spencer? I mean,
Yeah,
Felicia Spencer. Felicia Spencer,
something
sorry.
else. But yeah, I think she might be a little bit outmatched as far as just too physically. I would love to see how she would do at 135 if she could rip up to 135. But then again, you're going against Nunez, who has already proven herself right there. So
Yeah,
she's got a very difficult any girl.
Yeah. Now, it'll be interesting to see if Nunes actually stays at 135. I mean, at the weight division.
I think she'll try to stay in both divisions. Unfortunately, for both divisions, she's going to try and just continue to prove herself. I doubt. I would even love to see come up with a 155 weight class. And I think that at one time they were supposed to make one, but it might have been just a little bit too much.
I think Cyborg would be in that one too.
What's that?
I think Cyborg would be definitely in the 155 division if they made it. But I'm thinking that. Say it again.
Say again. I think that Cyborg is able to make 145. I think it would be. I think first of all she's been around for a long time. You know, her Cyborg has been around. Maybe at least 8 years.
Yeah.
How much?
And her normal weight is 145, but I'm sure she'll be happy if they make her 155. Now, for Nunes, I think she's probably going to make just one or two more title defenses at bantamweight. I think she's probably going to stay at featherweight. That's my opinion. Because if you get dominated at heavyweight, why not stay there?
I think what's going to wind up happening is that you see John Jones, such a dominant champion, and then along comes this guy who he's not Daniel Cormier, and he's not one of the heavyweights that we always see. He's kind of a relatively newcomer. Like, he's been around for a little while, but he worked his way up in the ranks, and here he goes, and he was able to match John Jones. No knockouts. There was no times of like, oh my gosh, where someone was truly dominant. It was a very evenly matched.
Oh, you're talking about John Jones' last fight.
Yeah.
Against Santos.
Now, I'm sorry?
Against Santos.
Yeah. But now Santos is one of those guys where he rose to the level of the champion, where you saw Anderson Silva, John Jones, all these people, or all these great fighters where you think, oh my gosh, they're Superman in their division. And then someone rises to you again, like Holly Holmes and Ronda Rousey. Like, eventually someone's going to take over. And right now, I think we're seeing some strong fighters start to move up, and probably within a year or two, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I never would have thought somebody would beat Nunes, and they made her look like nothing. There's going to be. It's got to happen. So, or maybe not. Ronda Rousey thought she was going to, as soon as she started talking about, I'm going to retire a champion, boom, she gets knocked out. And hopefully Nunes doesn't get too comfortable. Hopefully nobody else gets, but it's just very, very difficult, I think, for such a dominant champion.
Yeah. Now, do you think Nunes is going to stay bouncing around between the two weight classes, or you think she's just going to make one or two
I think so. I think
title defenses at the lower weight?
I think she doesn't want her fans or to herself to make it, for anyone to be able to say, oh, well, she only did it once or twice. I think she wants to constantly prove to the world and to herself, I can do it at both weight classes. And if she gets knocked out or loses, it's no big deal. Because she had a great run. I think that she is still in her prime, I think she's got maybe another year or two to be in her prime. And then eventually, injuries, they're going to wear on you. Age is going to wear on you. And someone's going to move up. I think that's what always happens. Age is undefeated. Time is undefeated, excuse me.
Yep. Yeah. All right. So we got Holloway beating Edgar, and then we got Chris Cyborg beating Felicia Spencer. Those are our picks, guys. All right, guys. We'll be back. What were you going to say, Sal?
I was going to say that both of these fights are going to be great.
Yep.
And I think all four fighters should be truly respected. I think they're all just great people and great fighters. And I think, they all have a chance. And I wish them all, the best of luck. And whichever way it goes, I think it's going to be. I think they deserve it. Whichever way it goes.
Yep. And just a quick note to everybody who's out there: this is a pay-per-view event. So you're not going to get it on regular ESPN Plus. You have to, obviously the prelims you can get on regular ESPN, and the pre-prelims you get on ESPN Plus, but the main event is only available on pay-per-view. That starts at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So
it does, and I actually have to get to another interview, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Zane. I'm going to be signing off. Watch next UFC 240.
All right, Zane, thanks for coming. Everybody out there, those were our picks for UFC 240. We'll be back after this short break. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to www.audibletrial.com/MMA show and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a trial for free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audible.com/MMA show. Why Audible? Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, comedy, and more from our leading audiobook publishers, broadcasters, and entertainers. And if you need a book suggestion, I have two. One is called I Am a Survivor by Christina Ritordo, and the other one is written by me, Marc Ritordo, called The Cabal. The Saga Begins.
This is a Coupon Queen Pin from the CQP Moments podcast, and you're listening to Marc the Shark MMA Show.
All right, guys, we're back to the show. This is Marc. And to all the listeners out there, we'd appreciate it if you make a small contribution to keep the podcast going. All you have to do is go to anchor.fm /Marc the Shark MMA show and click on the support this podcast button. And it's Marc with a C and not a K. Again, it's anchor.fm /Marc the Shark MMA show.
Hey fans, here at Podcast City Network, we have a lot of great shows on all of our great social media outlets. PodcastCity.net.
Facebook.com/Podcast City Network. Hit that thumbs up. You can send a tweet to Podcast City Network on Twitter at Podcast City Net.
Only on Podcast City Network.
Alright guys, we're at the end of our show. This is Marc Ritordo. I'm signing off. And don't forget to follow us on our Facebook page. It's called the Marc the Shark MMA Show. And it's Marc with a C and not a K. And also, feel free to leave us messages by using the Anchor app. And also, don't forget, if you're in the mood for a good action thriller book, to buy my book called The Cabal, The Saga Begins. It's available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And if you need a good book for your kid, get the I Am Survivor book or Invisible Girl book written by my daughter, Christina Ritordo, also available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon.com. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show and continue to listen to our shows every week. Thank you.